Now it's going, so you go ahead and go to Facebook. Go live. And then we'll go to intro. All right, it's Friday, and this is Uneducated.
Good morning.
Yeah, we
Just more technology.
Yeah, we got some things together here this morning, so we're glad that you're with us. As you're logging in, a couple things just to keep in mind as you're logging in. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, please leave them on Facebook or YouTube. And the other thing is this: if you have a YouTube account and you have friends, then share our videos on YouTube. And as you do that, ask people to subscribe, and because we want all the subscribers we can get.
Right.
So
we're trying to build a following, people. We're trying to work this thing.
Right. So excuse me for my coughing or my clearing of my throat there. But so today's Friday, and it is officially winter wonderland here in Ohio. Last week we said it got cold. This week we have snow.
Actual snow on the ground.
We got about, what, an inch maybe?
I would say 2 inches.
Okay.
You got to figure a little bit of melt there.
Yeah, he likes to go a little extra. I kind of be, try to be conservative.
You're trying to be real about it?
Yeah, So, Friday, a lot of stuff going on. We have no idea exactly what's going on, but there has to be a lot of stuff going on. Would you be?
Oh, there's tons of stuff going on. This has been an exciting week.
It has been an exciting week.
We're still in the middle of trying to get rid of a president.
Which is, I heard this week that someone was telling me that all of this impeachment stuff is all literally, and I hate to use the word that's been used, but it's all fake. It's not real. It's actually not being impeached.
It's contrived, and it will go nowhere.
Yeah.
Like this is all a show, for lack of better whatever. The Democrat team entered into a game that they can't come out of.
Okay.
They put red meat in the water for their constituency, and their constituency, if they don't get what they think they've been promised, they're going to go ballistic.
Right. And what I find so interesting is that when the Democrat president is in, the Republicans are trying to impeach him.
Right.
And when the Republican president's in, the Democrats are trying to impeach him. And I mean, I was younger and probably didn't pay much attention to politics, but I heard from somebody a couple weeks ago that Bill Clinton was actually impeached. Is that true?
He was.
And yet he continued his presidency and finished
and
it.
This is what people have to realize. Impeachment doesn't mean
no more president.
No more office.
Right.
Because judges can be impeached. You can be impeached is like opening a formal inquiry into what went on, and then in order for the president to actually be removed, it has to go to the Senate and pass by 2/3 vote.
Okay.
Like, it has to be a huge majority, I think. But no, just because the Congress or the House says we're impeaching the president, that's just saying we think there's impropriety. There then has to be a trial. And that goes on in the Senate.
Gotcha.
The Senate is overwhelmingly Republican. This is becoming a bigger and bigger charade by the day. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
We're going to have Donald Trump as president.
For the next 5 years.
If he gets reacted, which
That's what I'm saying.
I happen to think he's going to. But
have you seen the Democratic nominees so far?
Yeah, I have. They are wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't think they would call them Democrats. We really should just call them the socialist nominees.
Well, and here's the thing: if we could just get rid of the Electoral College and go with the popular vote, Democrats would definitely win.
Oh yeah, and our elections would be determined by the coasts. Our elections could be determined by the Florida coast, the New England and New York coast, and California, Seattle.
Don't forget Chicago.
And Chicago. Like those cities outweigh almost the rest of the whole country in population.
Right.
And this is the uneducated thing that most people don't understand about the Electoral College. The Electoral College gives Montana the same amount of voice as New York or LA.
Yeah.
And each state operates that way, and we can go popular vote. That's how you can win popular vote, but not win an election.
Mm-hmm.
If we went popular vote, the rest of the country just hang on for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it would go.
Yeah.
So, little government civics lesson there.
Well, yeah. Now that we've dealt with our politics, Matt, I was going to ask you today. I was just thinking through some things, and I was going to ask you: has God done anything amazing in your life this past week? So there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot in the news and stuff. But like for you personally, did you notice something and you said, "Wow, I think God just pulled that off for me"? Anything?
Yeah, He let me live.
Oh, that's a good one.
Hey, listen, I drove 700 miles. I went to Grand Rapids, Michigan. I stay in hotels. I eat at public restaurants.
Right.
I work at a job with hazardous equipment. I drive a car all those miles, a car that I may or may not questionably keep in good repair.
Yeah.
And on top of all that, He keeps me alive through all of that. Do you have any idea how many germs can kill us at any 1 second?
I know. It's a lot.
Like all the exposure that we give ourselves,
Yeah.
right? But no, I mean, that's amazing all by itself. And I'm a sinner, by the way. Like the whole week, I sinned the whole time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good confession. So are you repentant of that sin?
I would like to say that I am.
Okay.
But I would literally have to turn around and go, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I'll never do that again.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this morning. With all of our means, because I'm trying to make this proposal to a customer and get it out within 24 hours.
Okay.
Like, the computer really hasn't helped us. It's made it worse. And our data connection, and, because we've been talking about the last few weeks, why did this work and now it doesn't? And remember, we talked about, it seems to me that if you think that the church has never worked good for a long time, then it must be the form of government and the freedom in our government that made it work 50, 60 years ago. And we're calling that made it work, right?
Mm-hmm.
It worked better than it does now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I guess I've been on this mind quest, mind as in my brain. Like, why did it work and now it doesn't? And part of it is this technology thing.
Yeah.
Not only are we trying to live our lives, but what is the technology thing actually doing? Data gathering. We are now... You may think that you're just commenting on someone's post, wishing someone a happy birthday, wishing someone a happy anniversary, sharing a Trump tweet of why Trump is such an idiot and why you can't stand him and he shouldn't be here. And what you're data gathering. You're gathering data for you. You're giving Facebook and anybody else who you're participating with data. You're taking in data. One of the fun things this week. Are you aware of the Epstein didn't kill himself?
Oh, I saw that.
It's so much fun.
It's good.
Oh.
We said that when Epstein hung himself.
I know. I understand.
We're both like, he didn't hang himself.
But
Seriously.
for whatever reason, it is hard charging on Facebook this week.
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh, I
goodness!
didn't see it on Facebook. Where did I see? I saw it on a Skywatch 5 topics.
So they probably were actually talking about the fact that Epstein didn't kill himself.
Well, there was a reporter that had a hot mic and she didn't realize it. That's what they were reporting.
Yes.
You saw that?
Yeah, so
Okay.
a ABC reporter
yeah.
went to CBS
Right.
and was like, hey, CBS, we can throw the Clintons right into the dumpster bin of history.
Mm-hmm.
And ABC's like, no, you can't. You can't take that. You can't. We're shutting it down. Who's the head of communications and information flow at ABC?
Right.
George Stephanopoulos. And what did George Stephanopoulos do?
I don't know.
He was the lead communications director for the Clinton administration.
Oh my.
Yeah. Oh no. Like the bed of this is a cornucopia of incest and filth and corruption.
And need we mention Bohemian Grove? Let's not even go there.
No, that's the Republican side of it. The Democrat
You don't
side
think they ever invite the Democrats to that?
No, no.
Really?
I don't believe that.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
I don't know, maybe,
Right.
but it seems like the Republicans are. This is gonna be great. We are having a great show already. We aren't even monitoring our comments.
I'm monitoring them.
Okay.
I already shared our YouTube link because Naomi asked if we could share a YouTube link because she couldn't find it.
Okay.
And Rachel's on, and Sandy Weaver's on already. So,
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm glad. I'm trying to run the production. Like, we can do fun things like this. We're gonna switch our camera view. We're from the side. Hi.
We don't need no stinking
No, we don't need a producer.
producers.
No, we got this stuff going on.
Yeah.
So, Bohemian Grove. It seems to me that the Republican side of the thing seems to be like into homo stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know how else to put it. Gay stuff. What would be the proper good thing? There isn't one.
There isn't one.
Okay, and
At least you're being gentle about it, which is good.
The Democratic side seems to be into kid stuff and kid weird stuff, and I don't know what people out there in Radio Land know about Jeffrey Epstein, but it's a pretty well-known fact that he ran a pedophile island,
Mm-hmm. and
it's a pretty well-known fact, written about. I can't call it a fact because it would all be speculation, conjecture, and who am I? That he ran this pedophile island, and powers that be, secretaries of state, presidents, dignitaries, Arabs, all went to an island where kids were prostitutes.
Yeah, and it makes you sick to your stomach to know that people who we supposedly have to put our trust in to run the government, to do the different things we need, are literally morally bankrupt.
Yeah.
And granted, we try to say, well, you don't need morals to do this and do that. You don't need morals to run this and run that. And I get some of that, but at the end of the day, that's just it's just ridiculous how morally bankrupt.
And it starts with money, and once you have get yourself all the money and you get yourself all the carve outs, and you make that a professional scam and game, you then look for power.
Mm-hmm.
These people want power, and if you look, and we take this back to Nimrod.
That's Genesis chapter 11, if you're interested.
Nimrod went crazy. He wanted to be like God. And this all goes back to Genesis 3, where it would be the original sin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that 3?
In the garden, or are you talking about Genesis 6 with the fallen?
No. I'm talking about the original sin.
Okay, yeah.
That would be 3.
Mm-hmm.
Of biting the apple, and what did Satan?
Oh, it was an apple?
Well,
okay.
It's fun to think about.
Yeah,
I
always thought it was mango, but
hey, look at your computer.
what about the computer?
Look at the logo for your computer.
The logo. Oh, well, yeah.
We've talked about that 8 million times, right? All right, so it's obviously an Apple. There's a whole computer company dedicated to it.
We've longed for knowledge.
He told her, surely you won't die, and you'll know. And you can be like God, and you can see God and know for yourself like God. You can be like God.
Yeah.
Fast forward Nimrod, fast forward Egyptians, fast forward Greeks, Romans, and now the United States.
Yep.
Is it any shocker that we're ending up in the same way?
Right. And that's why I get so red flags go up every time I hear. I don't care whether it's George Bush at 9/11 Towers, or whether it's Barack Obama, or whether it's Donald Trump now. The idea is constantly America is great, or the spirit of America, or the people of America. And then at the end of their speech, they'll say, God bless everyone. Well, that doesn't even make sense
Right.
to me.
No, it doesn't. And then turn around and construct policies that are anti-Christian and trying to say that God doesn't belong in the state.
Right. Right.
When it was originally put together, it was supposed to be the state doesn't belong in God.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Right.
then they have the arrogance and the audacity to turn around and say, God bless.
Yeah.
But they're worshiping the wrong God. That's obvious.
Yeah, that's true. The god of Molech. And that's one of the reasons why our children are being trafficked the way they're being trafficked, is because this is all, and abortion is a part of that. When we hand our children over to the demonic realm in those kind of ways, I mean, it's no different than what the ancient people did. And God said to the Israelites, He said, "Don't you ever offer your children up to the god of Molech."
Right.
And yet, we're doing that like crazy here. I mean, it's a business now. It's a business not only to abort babies. I mean, doctors are getting rich off of that, and insurance companies and those kind of things, but also the trafficking thing. I mean, there's tons of money to be made in that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And we are fooling ourselves that we aren't sacrificing our children. It's just in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned this because I was talking to a good friend of mine in Indiana, and he does what I do, and we've talked for a lot of years and about being a Christian and loving God and serving Christ, and we covered many topics. From we're both about the same age, 41, and he's having feelings of being a fraud or being empty or being broken, and
is he a believer?
I would like to think so.
Okay.
We've talked enough, and I believe he's at least made a commitment to. It's that thing where I think he's saved. If I wanted to claim on a post that how many people came to an altar, I could say one. But the problem becomes like the discipleship, right? Yeah. And this is kind of the phone calls we have now.
Okay.
I would say it's friend to friend talking, but it would be the discipleship. And bring all this up and bring it full circle. I talked to him about he's into the Halloween thing, and I'm like, you got to get rid of this stuff. Like, it's torturing your brain. There's so many facets to this conversation, and we got into Molech.
Okay.
And I came at it from the fact that you're throwing your kid on the burning skillet of Molech by throwing them in front of horror movies and Halloween.
Yeah. Right.
So we're doing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are. There's so many rabbit holes you can go down. I think we're throwing our kids to Molech by sending them to public school.
Okay. All right.
Because we're sending our kids to be indoctrinated against us.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And now that my youngest son, actually, now that my oldest son is at a Christian college and my youngest son is at a Christian school, I can diss all the public schools now.
Yeah, perfect. I like that.
Last year, I wouldn't be able to do that. I would have had to say something, at least come to be politically correct in some way, so that I didn't.
I think that if you have to send your kid to public school, then you have to send your kid to public school. Again, this is a society being rigged against us.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's a lot of good kids that went to public school.
I went to public school.
Actually, I wasn't a good kid.
But this goes back to how come it used to work and now it doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, because it's in your face, we are taking God out of it.
Yeah. But you know what? I never had any student approach me about Jesus when I was in public school. I never had any teacher talk to me, or I never had the idea that any of my teachers were Christian in any way. So at the end of the day, my experience in the public school was definitely unchurched, non-Christian. I mean, everything was pagan to me when I was in school. Now, when I got out of school, of course, my college experience was no different, even worse so, because then when you get to college, now all of a sudden it's all, Mother Nature and all down your throats.
Well, so and that was your experience at Bowling Green, right?
Bowling Green, yeah. Not to mention it's 6 girls to 1 guy at Bowling Green.
No, listen. Oh, well, the odds were in your favor. Should you not be a safe gentleman?
They still were not in my favor.
I
think I could have been at a school with 12 to 1 ratio of girls and still not gotten a date. I think this is what's true.
Well, either way, but yeah, I mean, the colleges are the worst. If you send your kid to a public college, just assume that they're not going to love you or God when they come out.
Yeah.
Like, they're brainwashing camps.
Yeah.
Come on, people.
Now, the one thing I appreciate, though, with Brian and Nathan is when they would come home and something would be discussed at school that was either pro-evolution or just totally against what we understood, because we've always done devotions with the boys. We've always spent time learning and growing together in the scriptures. So my boys know a lot of scripture. That doesn't mean that they aren't in need of surrender in their life and that they don't need to make some serious commitments here in their future and all that kind of stuff. But they knew enough that when they would come home and something would they would mention it to me, and then we would have discussions about it, which was great.
Right.
Because then we could kind of debunk the stuff that had been said in a respectful manner.
Yeah.
And go from there.
You got new comments.
New comments?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, all right. So.
Hey, Dan Johnson's on.
Oh,
hey, Dan.
What's up?
Good to see you.
Jazzy
Dan, I
Johnson.
saw your wife yesterday, and she said that you guys are busy doing some stuff, and I won't put that online because, I don't know. Sometimes people don't want their information online, what they're doing. But
we'll have some privacy.
so just kind of remember you and all your busyness and that. So she looked good, and it was good to see her. So that was really cool. Jolie's on, which Jolie is actually, she's a nurse. So if we have any medical stuff we need to talk about, we could ask her.
That, like, I
She
don't
might
trust
respond.
doctors, and I think that they try and kill people.
Well, like, for instance, the rash that you've been struggling with.
Oh,
we,
no.
we could ask her
I
exactly what
didn't
that
realize
might be.
we were going with that.
We could ask her what that might be coming from, and she can maybe explain that.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's get into it.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to need to stand up.
All right, so we digress way too much. Now, Rachel says that's why she's planning on homeschooling. Rachel, I'll just tell you this. Hip, hip, hooray for you, because that's a great endeavor.
It is.
I'll just tell you this, that when my wife, April, when we tried to homeschool, one of two things either was going to happen. Either I was going to be killed, my children were going to be killed, or April was going to leave. Because homeschooling is harder than most people understand.
I had the same experience. I had 2 more children, and my wife was going to murder me. So, have a plan B.
Yeah, or at least make sure you know these things with your eyes wide open, and
Right.
and get as much information as you can so that your process can go as smooth
You
as
can
possible.
you can hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
You
because it is not. And for all the homeschoolers out there, hats are off, because it is not an easy feat.
No, homeschool moms are amazing.
They are, and I think that it doesn't necessarily mean that my wife is any less amazing.
Oh, mine either.
All right.
I didn't mean that.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is it's just, there's a lot of stress there, and you got to be dedicated to doing that. And if you
Right.
have a lot of outside things going on, which, let's face it, we all do, it really compounds quickly.
Well, here's the difference too. Like, for instance, my wife is an amazing 3rd grade teacher right now, and she teaches a lot of students in a classroom, and she does that for 6.5 or 7 hours a day, and she does an amazing job at it, amazing teacher. But when you're giving a classroom with a devoted amount of time and a devoted area of space to do your work, it's totally different than when you are at home trying to get your children to study and do things in the midst of getting dinners ready and lunches ready, and the house might be a wreck, or you don't have the right environment, or you got to run and do something here and run and do something there. It's a lot different.
No, it is.
It's a huge task.
And I think on top of that, if I'm trying to think of a nice way to put this, I don't think women like to stay at home all day.
No, it is difficult.
We now have. This isn't the Great Prairie in 1834 in the land rush, where we were lucky to find a flat piece of ground and build a sod house, and there's nowhere to go.
Right.
There's no way to get there, and your husband will bring home what you need to take care of the home, and you're literally going to be busy keeping the home running. Right. Now we have cars, we have TV, we have events, we have, all the nonsensical things that we do, and I think that this will be good. I think that
That's awesome.
no, it's great. You should throw one over your way. I think that now it's very attractive to get outside the home. Go take your kids to the park. There's things to take your kids to do. There's things that you can do. There's things that you want to do. And you feel like you're just sitting at home constantly, never ending. And they want to get out, and it half drives them crazy. And that's why this works and doesn't work.
Yeah, and here's what I think would be really neat to get back to is this one-room schoolhouse where you send your kids and they walk to school and they get there and they're all taught by this really nice teacher, in this really pretty dress or whatever.
I seem to think that you're talking about Little House on the Prairie. And
I'm sorry, that's what I'm talking about.
well, I think you're making a joke, but I think that this goes all the way back to where we started with our government being corrupt and federalized and a mess, an incestuous pool of garbage. That's how schools used to be, and they worked because they were in your community, right?
Yeah.
That was your community.
Right.
You knew those people at church. My daughter's gonna have sleepover this weekend. It's her birthday, and I didn't realize because I've been looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to my kid having the ability to have friends sleep over, and she can go do sleepovers and all the crap that we did when we were kids.
Yeah.
Right? You know, ride a bike down the street without being worried about whatever, and go stay out until dark, and I honk a horn and they come home.
Yeah.
Like I want these things.
Right.
Well, come to find out, in America, it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Because I got, it started out as going to be 4, and then 3, and then 2, and we're down to 1. And why are we down to 1? Well, the parents, we didn't meet the parents, which I think you should. But this goes back to the school.
They get married?
Huh?
They get married?
No, but I mean, wouldn't you want to know the parents? Just so that there's a face.
Yeah, but that's so odd because, like, when Nathan and Brian were in public school,
Yeah.
and they would have friends come over, parents didn't care.
No,
They didn't care to know who we were. They didn't care about the. And then my boys would always wonder when the boys would say, "Hey, can I go over to so and so's house?" And we would say, "We don't know the parents. We don't know the environment." And so eventually, they just stopped asking us to go over to so and so's house.
All right, so maybe this is why this is atypical for me, is because it's at Agape, and it's all parents that think like we do.
Okay, right.
Which is sad all by itself, because I like Agape in the sense that I know a lot of the parents there. I know that they're getting a Christian education. I know they're not doing Common Core math. I know, there's a lot of things that I really like about there, but at the same time, there are a lot of things that are really annoying. And one of the annoying things is it's a small community school, like we're talking. We all do kind of know each other, and yet it's kind of like, nope, don't know you, haven't visited with you. Like, we're not, I don't know if you're going to be a kidnapper, a murderer, a rapist, or what.
Right.
And then I have to sit there and go, yeah, that's kind of the culture we live in.
Yeah.
So I can't blame them.
Right. No, not at all. Because, you let your child go over to somebody's house, you don't know. You really don't know.
Yeah.
If people can look one way, and we've been talking about this on Sunday mornings for a while now, but people can look one way on the outside and totally a wreck on the inside.
Which, who am I to really judge? The only thing I don't want to have happen is my kid raped, destroyed, or mutilated. Like, if they go somewhere and they see a something, and this is really hard because it's like gray area. Like, I don't want anything horrible to happen to my kid. But I went places when I was a kid where parents smoked, parents drank, parents drove fast with me in the car. Maybe dangerous and questionable to how my parents would want to ride in a car.
Is this the first time your dad's hearing this, probably, on YouTube?
No, I don't think so. I think everybody knew, though. It's not a mystery. It just was like... We all trusted that everybody had enough scruples that I'm not going to kill your kid and I'm not going to do something bad to your kid. Mm-hmm. If something bad happened, we'll call it an accident and that'll be what it'll be.
Right.
Outside of gross negligence, I just think that used to be a baseline of trust that we don't have anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have anymore, and it's because we don't have small schools. We don't have community churches. We don't rule ourselves on a small community basis. We don't allow governance and God to come back to small.
Right.
You laugh at the single, basically Amish school. That's what Amish schools are, is one teacher teaching all the grades.
Right.
They work. They're still working. And yet we have, and I heard this on the radio this week, as a country in the world, we spend the most per capita per student in the world. And our education stinks on ice. World ranked.
Mm-hmm.
If throwing money at it, if passing a Chardon levy to get a new building, or I have friends that are singing the blues because I think it's Lakewood, I think it's Lakewood. Their levy went down, and they're going to have to pay for sports. If these are the things that are important to you, no wonder education.
Right.
And it's no wonder our education stinks. And if throwing money at it made smart children,
Mm-hmm.
we'd all be the smartest, but we're not.
Yeah. And, I mean, I never paid for sports when I was in school, and ever since my boys have been in school and able to play sports, we've paid every time.
Right.
And, yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Can I switch gears a little bit?
Yeah, please. I feel like we're wandering.
All right. I made a discovery this morning on Eric Metaxas. He did an interview with Hugh Ross. You familiar with Hugh Ross?
I know the name. If you hum a few bars, I'll...
So he's a Christian. He was an atheist, astrophysicist, I believe, big into the sciences. And then he began to study and look at all the evidence. And now he pretty much spends his life teaching and training people and helping people understand how science really doesn't, deny that there's a God, but it actually, tells us that there is a God.
All right, I've seen this guy.
And so he was interviewed by Eric Metaxas. I think they posted it just several hours ago before this morning, and I was listening to it on the way in. And I thought it was amazing. His new book, Hugh Ross's new book, you guys will have to check this out. I posted the link on our Facebook, so you can go ahead and check it out. But he's written a new book, and he also has some really good ideas about how to engage the culture concerning a lot of the questions they have. But he shared a story in his new book, and I just thought this was amazing. I wanted to kind of just tell it. So in his book, he has all these examples of people who are seriously stepping out on faith and doing what God has asked them to do, and the miracles that people are seeing. And one of the things he says, he had a brand new Christian that he had been discipling, and so him and this young man, they went knocking on doors. And so they knocked on, this is in California, they knocked on 20 doors, and they got rejected, or people weren't home, whatever it was. So they decided, we're going to go one more door. They went to this door, and obviously you'll hear this story on there if you go to the link, but if you don't go to the link, I think it's just worth hearing. So they go to this door, and it's a very dark and eerie kind of place, and there's a gate out front. And so the house is like set way back. They couldn't even see the house, I don't think. So they open the gate, and when they open the gate, a German Shepherd kind of comes out. And they don't really get scared or anything. German Shepherd doesn't do anything. And then the German Shepherd kind of leads them all the way back to this house.
Yeah.
So they get to the house, they knock on the door, the guy opens the door, and he says, yeah, can I help you? And they're like, well, we just, came here to talk to you and see, I don't know what they said. But anyway, the guy says, wait a minute, didn't my dog even bark at you? And they're like, no. And they're like, he led us right here. And they're like, my dog barks. My dog is like trained to attack and to keep people. The guy said, didn't you see the sign out front that said, beware of the German Shepherd because it's trained to attack people?
Nice.
And they're like, no, we didn't see the sign, right?
That's a good time.
So anyway, the guy invites them into the house, and the guy says that him and his family were just praying that God would send them someone because they had been struggling and understanding all the things that were going on in their life. God would send them someone to show them the way of truth or whatever. I don't know exactly how to explain it. So long story short, Hugh and this guy sat there, shared the faith. They became believers in Christ. They left, and when they left, they walked outside. They turned around, they looked, and there was this huge sign that they never saw. This huge sign that said, beware of German Shepherd, it'll attack you.
Yeah.
And yet they walked right past all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of some of the things in this book that he's written. And Hugh Ross he seems to be a really kind of a gentle guy that's just serious about his faith. But the reason I bring that out is because I've been spending a lot of time in the last probably year or so just asking God to fill me with His Spirit and to show me His glory.
Right.
And if you go back to the Old Testament, when Moses asked God to show him His glory, and then God said, okay, I'll show you my glory. And then He told him His name. And He said, I'm slow to anger. I'm abounding in loving kindness. I have compassion on people. When he did that, He was saying, I'll show you my glory. It's my character. It's who I am. It's what I do. And so when I ask God to show me His glory, and then I walk through the day, and then I see like something gracious that God just brought into my life or did for me.
Right.
Or I see something that happens. Those things aren't going by the wayside anymore for me. I'm going, wow, God is doing miracles in my life.
Right.
And I think too many times people think a miracle is that, I had cancer and I got totally healed. And that is a miracle. And God does those. Not only, can He do them, but He does them.
Right.
But I think miracles, they're around us every day. We just miss them.
Hence your question. You were trying to get the ball rolling, and somehow we ended up on the topic we ended up on. But you asked if God had did anything amazing in my life.
Right.
And you know what? We take for granted all of the simple ones, right? You know, and that is just waking up every day.
Right.
That is a miracle all by itself every day.
Yeah. No, it is 100%. And I'm just I'm trying to see if we have a bad feed for the Facebook, because something just kind of looks like it went down or it won't run on Facebook all of a sudden. So
I have to tell you that so far, running this from over here, it's been incredible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our YouTube is running fine, so I'm just going to double check on Facebook if that's all right. So because like I think Christians today they're okay with going to church every so often or whenever they get a chance to go to church. They're okay with believing in Jesus and maybe even fighting for some of the conservative views, whether it's abortion or whatever it is. And yet, I don't know how many Christians are experiencing the presence of God in their life on a regular basis.
And I'm going to bring this back around on my friend in Indiana, because this is where this conversation ended on the phone. Kinda. Was I don't know how to tell you how to do this, but I can tell you in my life. Because he said, he asked me, he goes, you always seem like you're upbeat, or you're okay, or you're like, don't you struggle with things? Don't you want to talk to people? Don't you want to get things off your chest? And because I think that was this kind of phone call between me and him was, you know, he's like, I always feel better when I talk to you. I feel like I'm getting stuff off my chest. And I said, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know how you do it. I know it is the trick or the challenge, but you have to understand one thing. You are worthless. You are nothing. There's nothing you're going to do that is going to make you feel better. You've come this far, and you've ended up in this place because you feel like this is what you've built you. And the difference with me is, and where I am, is I have allowed Christ to work through me. It isn't enough to believe. I mean, it is enough to believe in Jesus. I don't want to say something heretical right off the bat. But you have to then allow him, in working to live like Christ, you have to allow him in to come through you. You're not going to do anything that is going to save you. I mean, there's no other way to put this, I guess. And if I say something wrong, you help me out here. But it's Christ in us, showing through us, that redeems us. We literally can't do anything. And so how do I not need to talk to somebody on a regular basis? And I do talk. You talk to people, but it's not my foundation or my pick-me-up or my, hey, you're a real jerk. But the reason I allow you to go on is because I live in you, and I am trying to show through you, and let me take your messes. That's what he tells us every day. If you don't, I don't know how you live without that. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, because it's hard with it.
Right. And that's interesting that you brought that the whole thing up, because people today are struggling with all kinds of anxieties and fears and struggles, and yet the one thing they don't fear is God. And yet the Bible constantly says, fear him.
Right.
You know, that we are to fear him.
Right.
Now, granted, we should not be fearing any of the worldly things, but that's what everybody's afraid of.
Yeah.
And yet we don't fear God.
It's really crazy, because this is what we're talking about, the very thing. And he had things that happened bad to him in his life when he was younger. And you know, he kept saying, and I was misunderstanding, but I think we worked this out, because he feels like he used to talk to God, and even though the bad things happen, and now as an adult, if he goes back and watches this, he'll probably tell me I'm still an idiot for not understanding what he's trying to tell me, but I think I get it. He used to talk to God, and over time he didn't anymore. And then it kind of came back in the picture when him and I got back together, and this is a big part of my life. And so he asks himself, what? And I think people do this all the time, like, why would God let those things happen, even though I feel like I had a really good relationship with him? And I was like, well, you don't ask why he lets you have a great job. You don't ask why he lets you have two beautiful children. You don't ask why he lets you have a wife that, you guys get along, take care of a home. You have a home. It's got food in it. You don't ask him those things. Mm-hmm. Why did you let those things happen?
Right.
We only ask, why did God let the bad things happen? Well, it's in God's plan, but God doesn't accept or deny you things. Right?
Yeah.
I think this is a misconception that we think that this is God punishing us. Mm-hmm. And Manley was kind of talking about this when he was here talking with us a month ago or so. Like, you're just in God's plan. And if you have consequences for bad judgment, well, those are just consequences for bad judgment.
Right.
You have to accept God. And if you won't take him, he doesn't reject you. Mm-hmm. You just haven't accepted him.
Yeah.
And so you don't understand. You don't get any of the goodness.
Mm-hmm.
You're the one that made the choice.
Right.
And this is the hard thing to grasp onto, because the question isn't like, why did he let bad things happen? Mm-hmm. Well, he didn't.
Right.
That's just, whether or not you were with him or not with him, bad things are going to happen. We are in a world of sin, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
And the thing that you can get from it when bad things happen is that he is there for you to lean on.
Right.
But it ultimately is in his plan and made you who you are.
I've read the book. It's just a small paperback, and then I've been listening to it again via the YouTube, because they have it on YouTube, audio book. But it's Andrew Murray, who was back in the 1800s. It's his book on divine healing. Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting that throughout that book, Andrew Murray keeps talking about how, specifically because he's talking about healing and physical pain and things like that going on in the body, he keeps alluding to what I think is a fact, actually. He keeps alluding to this idea that when things happen in our life that aren't the way they're supposed to be, it's almost like a siren or an alarm going off that says, get back to God.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if I'm sick in my body, you're not just like, okay, I'm sick and I'm just going to have to deal with this with God. He seems to think that God allows a lot of things to come in our life to cause us to search and get into a deeper, more intimate relationship with God.
Well, I think that's, all right, this may be what I'm saying, and you correct me if I'm wrong. It has nothing to do with God allowing or not allowing. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a consequence. So if I get what you're laying down,
right,
we get a sickness because we are out of God's will.
Possibly.
Right?
Yeah.
This works all the way down to a DNA level.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And it isn't that God gave that to you, or that's your punishment, or your whatever you want to call it. It's a result. Yeah, it's not active discipline. Mm-hmm. It's just what happens to you. It's the sin that is allowed to flow into your life. It's the consequence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what's really cool
about
all
leaving
this?
the door, like when your kids leave the door open in the wintertime, and all of a sudden you got a cold draft coming in the house.
Right. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
It is a result of a choice. Right? Or an action.
Right.
And if you don't heat your house and you happen to love it to be cold, that may not be a bad thing to you. Right? You may be okay with it. But if you heat your home, you're going, I'm not paying to heat the outside. I need that door closed. Right?
Yeah.
So it's just how these things all work. And I'm real quick to go back and mention Dave. Do you remember Dave Miller? I was talking to him. I think you were there. And or was it on Sunday? He was, he had stood up and was sharing something with us. But he had said, like, sin, it may not feel like it right away, or you may not notice it, but it's killing you.
Mm. Yeah.
And so no truer a statement could be made, and is exactly what we're talking about. And it's very convicting in my life. We do these things that we know are incorrect or sin, and we do them every day, or we do them every other day, or we do them once a week, or they come in new and we get different ones, and they're killing you.
Right. Well, think about it. So in the Old Testament, there were different times. Psalmist, David, they would talk about this idea that my bones ached or my bones were broken, but when I confessed my sin, all of a sudden now I was restored. Or whenever I came back to the Lord, then all of a sudden my body was healed and my bones were refreshed.
Right.
There was this physical connection between the sin of the world. And then if you go back...
And they knew nothing of modern medicine.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, nothing.
This was just observational.
Just observation.
Yep.
And then when you go back and, like you had said about it killing us, when you go back to Adam and Eve in the garden, which we were there a little bit ago.
Right. Earlier in the discussion.
Right. So Adam and Eve decide that they're going to go ahead and eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which God told them not to. And he said, listen, the day that you eat of it, you will surely die. The physical consequences for their actions did not happen automatically. It took them a long time to die.
It happened automatically.
The spiritual side.
It started that moment.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but it took a while too.
And that wasn't direct penalty by God.
Right.
Like God wasn't it wasn't a spanking. Right. God told them.
Yep.
That's going to happen. So he almost removed himself from the process.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're not getting a spanking from God. Right. He warned them that's what's going to happen.
Right.
You are going to die, and that's how it goes.
So let me bring up a illustration that would be a Garden of Eden illustration, but would be today. So a guy and a girl decide that they really like each other. They're attracted, and she's hot and he's hot, and they decide.
It's an age-old story.
Yeah, they decide they're going to have sex together.
Sure.
And they have sex, and it feels really good, and they love each other, and they walk away from that, and there is these feelings of elation, and they're just, they feel so good. And about 2 weeks later, she comes back to him, and she says, I took a test, and it was positive. Now, that child is not a mistake or a bad thing or anything like that.
Right.
However, the consequences now of these two people, because they did something outside of marriage, now all of a sudden they have to change all of their directions to try and figure out how they're going to deal with this child.
Right.
Now, they can stop there and say, okay, you know what? We're going to start doing what's right now. We're going to have this baby. We're going to love each other because we've already become one flesh. We've already had sexual intercourse, so we become one flesh. We're going to do what's right. We're going to become a mother and a father, and we're going to start following God. Or they can decide to possibly get rid of the child and then go have intercourse with someone.
Sacrifice it on the altar of Moloch.
Sacrifice it on the altar of Moloch. Or
Yeah.
they can decide, hey, we're going to go have, we're going to go have intercourse with other different people. So it'll continue to bring destruction and death into your life, but it can be stopped as well. It can be stopped if a person says, okay, you know what, God, I'm going to turn or repent. I'm going to turn from those ways, and I'm going to start following your ways because they're the best ways to live.
Right. Well, hey, one of those times that they're out with the different person could have a sickness, and now you have that sickness.
Exactly.
So
and maybe the baby was a bad illustration because I don't in any way want to say that a baby coming into the world is a bad thing.
There's a myriad of things because listen,
right.
this thing in the confines of biblical structure, marriage, it's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. It's the thing that should happen. Right. It should happen 4 times. Yeah. Or 6 times. 6 kids Catholic.
Yeah.
But
2 times for us.
2 times over here. So it's a thing that, is ordained and is a happy time. And it's a happy time. I think this is what's terrible when you do it out of the confines of marriage, or you do it out of the confines of how God wants it done. It's still a happy time.
Right.
And I think us making it a scary time, or you making the point that that's not a sickness, it's sad that point even has to be made.
Right.
But that's what we've turned it into. It's a condition. The baby is a condition, not a joy and a blessing, which
right.
God says the children are blessings.
Right.
Right? So we've even ruined that.
Yeah.
And so it still can be a happy time if you do it right. Mm-hmm. And fix it. Hey, if you take a candy bar from Marathon Circle K, it's delicious,
mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
But if they catch you on camera and you have a cop come to your house and say, "Hey, what were you doing?" You're going to pay for that deliciousness.
Right. What did you say it was again? That you were getting
a candy bar.
A candy bar.
Yeah.
So and if you
you can get a tornado or a corn dog, whatever makes you happy.
Right. And let's take it just a couple steps further, and you do that every day. And you start to take two then a day and eat two, now all of a sudden you haven't been caught by the police, but now all of a sudden you have a disease that you're going, how did I get this disease? Well, it's because you ate 2 candy bars every day.
Every day for however long you ate them. But you could get that disease if you paid for the candy bars.
You could. You could. But again, it's like one of those things where you're going, God has a plan. He has a way to do things that are best.
Right.
And when you go against that plan, sickness, all those kind of things can happen.
The candy bar is delicious.
Yeah, it is.
The fact of the matter isn't that the candy bar is good or that the baby is good. The baby is good, and a blessing. It's how you participate in this world. Are you going to live for God and use His methodology, or are you going to use your own?
Right.
And when you start using your own, you start to pervert the good things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good word to use, perverted, because that's exactly what happened in the Garden of Eden.
Right.
Matter of fact, the first thing that was perverted in the Garden of Eden was their sexuality, because in chapter 2...
They knew they were naked.
Yeah, at the end of chapter 2, they were naked and they were not ashamed.
Yeah.
And then at the end of chapter 3, they're covering themselves with fig leaves because now they're ashamed of their sexuality.
Right.
I mean, it's the first thing you perverted.
No, the blood and sexuality are somehow that we're going to find out someday in a different universe, not a different universe, a different realm, a different dimension.
Right.
You know, when we finally see how many dimensions there are to this existence, I think that we're going to see a powerful thing in blood. And you've mentioned this before. And we're gonna know what power there is in sexuality that we treat so flippantly.
Right.
You know, magazines, television, movies, like it's one of the first things that gets messed up.
Right.
When a society is crashing.
Right.
Is sexual perversion.
Yeah.
Right.
And can I just say this, that sex inside of in the confines of a marriage where the husband is seeking Christ as his all in all, and the wife is seeking Christ as her all in all, and they as individuals and as a couple are getting back to what marriage was supposed to be in the garden pre-fall, so
right.
Before Genesis chapter 3, before they fell. I think that the sexual union that happens there can be taken to a whole new level of intimacy.
Right.
And I still think, even though a lot of scholars would disagree, that when we get to heaven, sexual union between your spouse, or however that whole thing works, I think all that's going to be taken to a level that we don't even understand.
Yeah. Yeah, we are doing things down here that we don't understand how it's going to affect our future.
Right, because think about the millennial kingdom. Now, granted, I know people say, well, wait a minute, that's not the new heaven and the new earth yet. But in the millennial kingdom, if people who believe the millennial kingdom is to come and it's a 1,000-year rule of Christ here on the earth, so Christ is now ruling, and there's going to be babies being made. I mean, populations are going to increase.
Sure, we're still going to be humans doing human things.
Yeah, and I kind of think that even once we get into the new kingdom, we're still going to be humans.
Right.
We're going to be transformed. We're going to be glorified, but we're still going to be humans doing human things that God created us to do. I don't have necessarily specific biblical references to
no, but like you just extrapolates into a theory that can make sense.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's not. Don't take any of this seriously, but it's a theory.
Yeah.
It's an idea.
Right.
It's a thought.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we try and do here on Uneducated.
Yeah. Maybe we could just talk, because we have a few minutes left, because we started just a few minutes late today. But maybe we could just talk a little bit about Uneducated, because the reason why we entitled our little show here on Fridays Uneducated is we kind of looked back at the whole Acts thing when the disciples, or the apostles then, were taken before the council, the Sanhedrin. And it was discussed among the Sanhedrin that they were amazed at the way they taught and the things they did, because they said, these are uneducated men.
Yeah.
And yet they realized that they had been with Jesus. And I think part of this is that when you watch anything on TV today from a Christian standpoint or a non-Christian standpoint, secular, the only people that get credence or that someone's going to talk to or give any kind of time to listen to is if they have a PhD or they're very well educated.
Well, an expert, as it were.
An expert, right?
Are you an expert?
Right. And my professor in theology class told me that if you read 5 books, I believe, a month, that in 5 years, on a certain topic, in 5 years, you can become an expert on that. I think that was kind of the number, how you do that.
That seems like poppycock to me.
It is, to a degree, because
if you, all right, so if you're telling me that if I read about building buildings, 5 books, how long?
I think 5 books a month for 5 years.
So if I read 5 books a month for 5 years on building, I will be an expert on building. I never laid a hand on a hammer. I never hung a door. I never installed a wire. I never connected an outlet. Didn't even screw in a light bulb. I'm an expert on building. I think I see what's wrong with TV news.
It's possible.
But am I right?
I think you're exactly right. And the guy who...
That is the dumbest explanation of an expert I've ever heard in my life.
And the guy who became an apprentice and watched the guy who went before him, and the guy who went before him had a really good work ethic, and he did things well, and he did things right. In my opinion, that guy who in 5 years, that guy's going to be a great builder.
Right.
Doesn't mean he's an expert.
Right.
Because he hasn't sat in the classroom, but he's going to be a great builder.
He should be reading books too.
Yeah.
There's no.
I agree.
You should be reading books, reading articles online, watching videos of people building things, problems they run into. You should be experiencing that. You should one day you go to work. It's no different than how I learned how to do what I'm doing. I learned how to do what I'm doing. I started when I was 10 years old. My dad said, "I need a wire from that pin to that pin over there." That's all I did.
Right.
That one wire. Didn't matter if it took a half hour, an hour, or 5 minutes. Because then when that was over, now take one from that pin to that pin. And then it was, all right, I'm going to show you on this drawing what you just did. And then now the drawing started to make sense. But me putting my hands on it made me who I am today, in conjunction with, here's the paperwork that shows how to do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't go to I went to college, but I didn't go to college for that, and that's what I use now, not my college. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And obviously he didn't spend much time doing that with Mitch.
I'll let you and Mitch can wrestle.
I just thought that was good.
No, that was good.
So this is uneducated, because we want people to understand that if you're willing,
you tell Mitch sorry,
Mitch. if you're willing to become Jesus' disciple, you cannot become an expert necessarily, but you will learn how to live in the way that is best. And anybody can do this.
Right.
Anybody can do this.
Right.
You don't have to be some kind of brainiac. Nothing. Anybody can do this stuff.
Right.
And I think it's important too to know that you don't have to be a celebrity to tell your story about the miracles that God's doing in your life. Because if you're willing to go after God with all your heart, He'll do miracles in your life like crazy.
Right. Well, and it's like we said earlier. It's allowing Him to be in your life and work through you. You have to be open enough to know that you're not going to do it.
Right.
And He's going to do it through you. You're going to live like Him, and He'll show you.
Right. So can I say this? Eric Metaxas has not called me to come on his show.
No, it's crazy. And I will tell you, week after week, I think that this is probably, I don't know what it sounds like yet. We haven't listened to it. But this is probably our best show to date. I think we're catching up with him.
And I'm going to tell you why this is our best show to date. I was downstairs this morning making me and Matt breakfast, which sounds really odd because we're guys, and guys should not be making other guys breakfast.
Well, you are a good cooker.
I am a good cooker.
Yeah.
That's part of the uneducated thing. So I'm down there, and I'm praying. Obviously, I told you for months now, I've been praying, God, fill me with your Spirit, show us your glory. But I asked specifically.
Specifically?
Yeah, specifically that God would glorify Himself through this cast today, that people would be encouraged and strengthened by the things we talk about, and that He would lead our discussion today.
Right.
And I don't think we should take that for granted, that everything we do, we need to be dependent on God for. And I think it's so important. So just to get back to Eric has not asked me to be on his show, but I would just like to let Eric know that my son Nathan, on a regular basis, prays for me because I have some physical issues. My back's been just giving me some problems and stuff, and he prays for me on a regular basis. And I believe that the relief that I have been finding in my physical state has been directly related to my God, who has heard my son and mine and my wife's prayers and the church's prayers on Wednesday nights. to give me relief in my back. That's a miracle.
Right.
I mean, it's not like oh well, it's just coincidence. Maybe it's just feeling better now. And
Are you taking this from the approach that you want to know how you can get on Eric's show and talk about your miracles, like the bald guy that you were talking about earlier, Hugh Ross?
No. Here's my thought is
this is your miracle. This is your miracle for the week. This is what God did for you this week.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. Like when it comes to uneducated and us, we're doing this, kind of low budget type thing. And
I'm touching my head.
Yeah, and I've been picking my nose the whole show for some reason. I'm still a little nasally from my cold, trying to get over it. It's been almost 2 weeks now. Someone should be praying about that so I get rid of that thing. But anyway, no, I think what my thought is that people watch this kind of stuff and all they see is the educated people who are popular that things are happening to, and that's where they hear that and they look at it and they go, it's being done over there, but it's not happening here. It can happen here.
It can happen here, and I would argue that I think that if you can show people that you are just as bad as they are, but yet you have those moments of miracles and you're testifying, you're witnessing. Like it comes back to all the basics. They will listen to you and they will want to know what makes you tick.
Right.
And then you can share. Right. And it's not seminars, at Bethel. It's not it's not books from experts. These things can help. But it's good old fashioned do what the Bible says.
Right. And that's another great point, and that is this, that when we decide that we're going to do what is right and follow God and get into his presence and let him control every aspect of who we are, the miracle is not what is important.
Right.
The miracle will happen.
The miracle is a testimony.
That's all it is.
And
it should always point back to him.
And you know what? The miracle is almost being used. The miracle is being used to beat people over the head. Is like, well, this didn't happen to you, so you're not as spiritual as I am. The miracle's for you. Your miracle's for you. You know where it came from and what it was, and you can share that. But you know what? 50% of the people are going to go, I dare I say 70% of the people are going to go, that's a coincidence. But the miracle isn't for them.
Yeah.
It's a tool for you to use and say, no, I know God did this for me because I have a good God.
Right.
But much like the Egyptians, how many plagues did they have to go through before they listened?
Right.
It took them killing firstborns.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So the miracle isn't for others. It's for you.
Right.
And for you to share. But let's understand the miracles in our own individual lives.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if any kind of thing that comes in your life, whether it's back pain or some kind of physical illness or a tragedy that comes in your life or an issue, whether it's financial or your marriage falling apart, whatever it is, if that thing comes into your life and it's a siren or a warning thing that goes off saying, hey, get back to your inner life with God, you need this intimacy with him, if that draws us back and that thing never fixes itself,
right?
Like I'm looking at this going, I praise God for the relief I've felt, but if for some reason that relief goes away, then it still needs to be a call for me to get back to my inner life, my closeness with him. And if for some reason it gets worse or, my life is gone,
if you tragically lose an arm,
right,
it's not coming back.
Right.
But there's still a reason for you to praise God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it could come back.
Well, I suppose that it could.
Did not Jesus restore the ear of the guy?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I won't deny it.
I'm just saying arms can grow back.
Would it be like...
Have you not seen Spider-Man?
Forget Spider-Man. Did you see... What's the movie with the bugs where they fight the bugs on the other planet?
What?
Yeah, and they have the computer prints an arm. Like he loses his leg or an arm, and the computer prints him a new arm. It's like writing his DNA. Oh, like how cool would that be?
That is cool. Well, isn't Spider-Man? We just watched Is it Spider-Man 2 or 1? I can't remember. There's several different types with different Spider-Mans.
Okay.
But it's the one where he goes into the facility at Oz Corporation, and the guy's working on technology to grow new limbs. So he takes the DNA from a lizard that grows a new tail.
Oh.
Do you remember that?
No.
But then he injects it into himself. They get the final logarithm that they need to make this thing work. He injects it in himself. Obviously, he grows a new arm back, but then it starts to transform him into a lizard man. And
oh. Well, hey, listen. That stuff's happening right now.
so you can grow limbs back.
You can grow limbs
You
back.
just might turn into a lizard man.
That you heard it here first, folks. That's not just a movie; it's fact.
Yeah, so it is 11:12, and
We'll be punching out soon.
I think we've probably overextended our stay here with everyone.
We've overstayed our welcome.
Yeah, my mom used to tell me, don't ever overstay your welcome. And the Bible even says that. Don't stay too long at someone's house, because then they might end up, hating you for that. So,
The Bible says that?
yeah, I'll have to find the exact reference, and I paraphrased it, but I'll have to find the exact
But I
reference.
mean, that's really listen, that's really cool, right? Like, even the Bible goes to don't stay too long at someone's house; they'll not like you. Because you know what? It's true.
Yeah, I'll just find it real quick before we go.
Okay,
right?
yeah, I would like to know
Matt's
this.
going to talk to you just for a second about some things that are coming up. Like, what about that Christmas Eve service that's coming up, or about that prayer service? When's that? That's December 11th.
What prayer service?
December 11th, we're going to have an all worship and prayer service.
We are.
Yeah. Did you know anything about that?
I haven't heard anything in the workings. I don't know. I mean,
Well, that's because you're not leading the worship.
No, I'm
I'm
not.
just joking.
no, it's well.
You've heard about that? Yes, you did.
It's true. No, I know I know the ball got rolling, but I don't
Yeah.
know where it's at in progress.
Oh, I thought it was December 11th.
Okay. Well,
So if you need prayer and you'd like to come and pray with us, and you'd like to worship,
to worship and do a worship service, you can come hear us worship and pray.
right?
And pray with us. No, what I was going to throw in there, you were like, Matt had a thing, and I was going to be like, this is a good point in the show that could be open for advertising.
Okay.
We can start doing live reads for you. So let us know if there's a product that you'd like us to mention for you.
Oh,
Huh?
that's good.
Huh?
That's really good.
Yeah, we could do like live reads.
I kind of think that Naomi, she has a photography business that she does.
Oh, okay.
We could figure out a way to do a commercial for her and run that.
Do you remember what the name of her business was called?
Why do you put me on the spot like that?
Wasn't it like Kids Vids or something like that?
No, I don't think so. Was it? I'm gonna find out. It is The Difference. No, that can't be right. The Difference Maker.
She has like 82 businesses.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know. She's gonna tell us here in a minute if she's online, because she's gonna be like, "You guys are messing up my whole."
No, we're actually
vibe.
we're doing an anti-commercial. If there's a way that we can make a commercial negative, we've done it.
So Proverbs 25:17 says
This is
in
great.
the New American Standard, "Let your foot rarely be in your neighbor's house, or he will become weary of you and hate you."
Oh, that's even deeper than stay too long.
I think, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Wow, and you know what's really strange about that? All of a sudden flooding back to me. That's some pretty sage advice.
It is, and
We
that's
can
why
talk about that next week.
Yeah, that's why I don't like to go to people's houses too much.
No, I'm not going to anyone's house now. Thank you, Proverbs.
So the whole idea that pastors are supposed to do pastoral visits to people's house all the time, so they feel like the pastor cares about them,
A new comment.
it's probably not. It's probably not going to be good. That's not even biblical, as a matter of fact. Oh, Dottie says she needs employees.
Oh,
Well, Dottie, if you put together a little something, and send it to our email, and then we'll throw that up, kind of in between. Like, we'll do some commercial spots.
we're
We'll
gonna.
throw that up.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out billing, and we'll have our accountants call your accountants, and it'll be a whole thing.
I think what we'll probably do is the first so many we'll do free.
Okay.
That brings people in.
Right.
And then after that, there's a monthly
Well, you think
fee.
so? Once they get the taste of our 32 viewers, once they see how powerful that is, that they won't be able to deny it.
They won't. They'll want
All
to pay.
right. All right.
Yeah, big man.
Beautiful. All right. Are we punching out?
Yep, we're punching out. So we'll see you next Friday, Lord willing, and have a great weekend.
We'll see you guys next week.